Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Ground Up Podcast. My name is Matt Walton, here with my co-host Matt Huber. We are here with another great guest today, somebody who actually is in our area. I met a long time ago when I first started my wholesaling journey. He was one of the first people to help me out because my numbers were terrible. I'll talk about that in a little bit here, but our guest is Shawn Bowen, who not only is who does wholesaling, does fix and flips, buy and hold, sub-2 deals. He's really focusing on the lending space right now. We're going to talk a little more about the market and how he looks at his numbers and his deals that come up also. But I get a lot of valuable information from a guy who takes a lot of notice on the trends, a lot of notice on the numbers especially. It's not an emotional game for him. It's all about the numbers, which it should be. And so we'll talk a little more about that. Shawn Bowen, how you doing?
What's going
Doing
on?
good,
What's going
man.
on?
Good to
Awesome.
see
I
you.
appreciate you guys having me on here. This is fun. Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up that way because I forgot that is how I met you. And that's how normally business starts, but it's cool to see you grow because you've been into it and you've done well and doing this. So it's awesome to see you guys grow.
Yeah, it was 3 years ago. I had one of my first wholesale deals. I didn't have any buyers at the time. I think I threw it out on Facebook, which I feel like everybody who doesn't have buyers throws it out on Facebook, and that's not the way to go. I didn't know that, obviously. Threw it out, and you looked at me. You called me on the phone. You're like, hey, let's talk about this. You're like, hey, you can't use comps crossing this railroad. You can't use comps over here. This is where your numbers need to be, and this is where you need to have it locked up at. And it ended up working out for me. I ended up getting it done with another buyer that I talked to right away. It just happened to work out a little higher than what you said, but it was great. It was right around what your numbers were. And because you said that, I learned a lot from that. And so it's how we met. And so just starting off here, you help a lot of people. You have a group on Facebook. It's wholesaling real estate in Virginia.
Yep.
Yep. And so a lot of people come through and you help them out in wholesaling. Tell me about why you do that and why you spend your time helping people out in the community over here in Virginia.
So when I started, I came from a contractor's background, and that was all I knew. So if I go through like the cycle of coming young to getting older, I started as a bartender and then bartending to working as a landscaper and contractor because I didn't really think I had any other skills. So I took over my dad's contracting business, ran it, didn't like the way he run it, so I stepped out and did my own. And then that was it. It's where I started. And then I had a lady at the time, her name was Patty, and you know who I'm talking about. She was a franchisee for the We Buy Ugly Homes crew and started talking about this thing called wholesaling. And that's kind of where it started, of like a person that helped me. And then she really took me under her wing. I worked with her a lot. Then I met a local RIA group, and that's kind of how I got started. And one of the things I learned really quick was be around the people that are helping you, right? And stop trying to reinvent the wheel. I think a lot of younger guys, males, whatever, that's the ego thing, right? I'm going to do it the hard way. I'm going to figure it out, that mentality. And just by being around that RIA group and being around her, it really opened up my eyes to helping people. So I realized, like, the more people I help, the farther I get, right? So, and it's not expecting anything in return. That was just something I figured I was good at, right? I enjoyed talking to people. I enjoyed helping, which ultimately got me more deals and more money. So that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, I think it's a full circle thing that comes around. And the more you help, and a lot of people talk about this also, like give as much free stuff as you possibly can, help out as much as possible. And then when the time comes, when people need something and you have what they need, they're like, hey, I trust Shawn Bowen because Shawn Bowen has helped me get to where I need to. Like, I trust you. Like, I'll come out to you and I'll say, well, here's what I had this deal. Like, I'm struggling with the numbers on here, and you're the numbers guy who's like, quickly, like, this doesn't make sense, Matt. Like, this is why. You're not doing it in front of your vision just to show me this makes sense. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. 1 and 1 is not 11, although a lot of people want to figure that way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think too many people have emotions involved instead of just looking at numbers.
Yep.
And that's kind of that's where I play at all the time and every single day now, especially from a lending capacity. So I guess if we can just get the people that you help that are new, get off of the wow factor of the YouTube, and they're looking at the cars and the boats and the vacations and the flashy stuff. If you get past all of that and you look at like what real numbers are, that's where the game starts. I don't think that's attractive, and I don't think it's sexy, which is why people don't like it, right? But I am definitely a in-your-face, talk to the math, stay away from the feelings person, and a lot of people don't like that. And I get it. I'm kind of rough around the edges. Not everybody's cup of tea. That's okay. I'm not meant to be. So yeah, I stay around helping people because it ultimately comes back. Like you said, you end up working with more people. So just help, just care, be a good human. Like why does everybody got to always have an edge or an angle?
Right.
Well, look, and as I hear you say that, and it's good, I think, that you do it for the lack of an angle, right? Because I can tell you, I can remember one of the organizations, the first organizations I did sales for, they really shared that principle of originally you're going to be fed and eventually you're going to be placed in a position where you can feed others, and the amount you can give back over time is something that you owe to the next generation because it was given to you. But I also think that even if you, let's just say you are a selfish person. Let's just say you are a person who wants to play the angle. I can also tell you that once you start teaching people how to do things, you have to attack doing it yourself in a very different way, because now it's a strategic way. It's you're giving advice to somebody. And I think what I've found as I moved from more of a doer to a teacher over the past couple of years is that it reminds me to have all of these foundational things that makes me be better at the doing side of it, because I have to teach it in a way that is easy for the fundamentals to learn. And typically the thing that we lose track of as we gain experience are those fundamentals that got us where we are. So did you experience anything like that, where I heard you say that the more helping you did, the better you got, but I think that, unknowing that there might be an attachment to just being able to go back to the fundamentals and the basics. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to being a coach or a teacher in general. So another piece of my life is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I've been doing that for the past 12 years, right? It is not easy, and it's very hard, right? So coaching people through that is really hard. Everybody's got a different way that they learn, the different way they remember, like whatever you want to call that thing. So yes, as a teacher, you have to learn how to work with different people. So I think that in the jiu-jitsu world, it's a love that I have, right? And I've currently just had knee surgery, so I haven't been able to do it for almost 3 months. And one, there's a disconnection mentally, and there's a physical connection that has to happen, right? Like, I got to have it. It's a disconnect. I turn my brain off. I go do it. So I think it just rolls right in with this. Being a teacher is not easy. It's not meant for everybody. Being a coach, being a mentor is not meant for everybody. So over the years, I've had to learn how to adjust that. I agree. But the same reps of the principles you're talking about of fundamentals never change, right? If anything, you have to have those principles. So how are you, if you go back to the wholesaling model, how are you getting the leads? How are you talking to sellers ultimately to solve a problem, and not talk about the finance, the money side of it? Just solve a problem first, because then people can see through your bullshit if you just care about the money. And if you're there to solve a problem, usually that comes right along with the deal, right? They're not as much concerned with the money as they are solving the problem. So yeah, I agree. If you rep the fundamentals all the time and you stay on them, then you're going to be really good at what you do. I think that's the hardest part of getting new people to understand. They're so ingrained with I want to make this $10,000, $20,000, and they don't do the fundamental pieces of learning how to talk to somebody like a person. And that's what that is from a wholesale space, is marketing and sales. That's all it is.
It's so funny to me that you used the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coaching and your experience in that to attach that, because that's the exact same place. I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I coached in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that is where I learned the idea of this aspect. And I have a certain body type, a certain skill set, a certain way to do it, but you might be a very different person. I'm not that flexible guy. I like to have a top game, not a bottom game. And see, but you then have to learn the different styles to be able to teach the different personalities. And I think that applies into the wholesaling side. For me, I know it applies to sales. Is my natural ability is not going to translate to everybody. So how can you teach the fundamentals that are going to translate to all different personality types, all different mindsets? Because there's not one way to do any job. There are many different ways you can be and be successful at it. But it's funny that you came to that conclusion, not just from what you do professionally, but also in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then adapting into a teaching environment there, because that's the exact same place I came to that conclusion as well.
It's awesome. Yeah,
I knew you related as soon as you brought that up. I was like, oh, man, I love this. Yeah.
It's a game changer. And you, as a coming up as a white and blue belt, you hear different coaches being like, man, this shit's changed my life for outside of this gym and inside this gym. And until you're there, I feel like usually by blue and it guaranteed by purple, you're in. You're not going anywhere, right? Because if you think about it, you're probably in at 3 to 5 years by the time you hit purple. And you just, I was a heavy drinker when I was younger, and I, did all the stuff you weren't supposed to do. That world pulled me out of that. And it made me, it's like, look, I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to do this. I'd rather spend time here. And it changed me completely. So then I took that and put it into my business, and it changed everything, the way I looked at things. Somebody's beating your ass. I mean, beating your ass for real. What is that pressure like in the business world to now over here in the jiu-jitsu world, right? Bring that same feeling over and know that you'll get past it. You got to do your fundamentals, your framing, and you get out of here and then get control and self-defense. I got it. So I do the same thing, and I talk about the same thing in the wholesaling world, but going over to the lending space, now it's where we're at now. We're doing the same thing, but we're seeing guys that are wanting to transfer from being rehabbers, or they're guys that just have money. And they're like, Shawn, I don't trust anybody. So then you got to build the trust with people to show them the security, the paperwork, what is a good deal, what's not a good loan, that kind of stuff, and underwriting, to where that has been our focus this past year. Is we've done great on the lending and creating new borrowers. But then you see people come to us and be like, hey, I got some money. I want to put it to work. How does this work? Show me how this happens. And that's what we do. So I've taken the same principles and concept from coaching and teaching under wholesaling over to because I did that. I thought I did it really well, right? And then we created all these things for wholesaling and the programs. Now we're taking that into the lending space. So we're showing people, and we're teaching them the same way that people want to learn in the wholesale space how to do that. It's, well, I've got this pile of money, and I don't want it to be subject to the market. I want to have a good return, but I want to be safe. I don't want to lose my principal if I don't make interest, all these kind of things. So that's another build out that happened probably about Q2 of this past year. Q3 started to ramp up, had some more people, and I haven't made it like an official thing like our wholesaling website is, but that's something we're working on this year, is bringing those people in that have money to put to work, show them how it happens, show them how to underwrite. And a lot of them don't want to be involved, right? But there's a lot of people out there that just have funds, right? Hey, put money into my fund and you make this return. And like, how many times do you hear that fail? Or how many times do you hear somebody being like, I got scammed, or, they got overpromised and way underdelivered?
Yep.
Versus showing how this happens, right? Showing how the paperwork works, showing the security, showing the math. Like, that's probably the most important part that overwhelms the hell out of anybody that wants to get into this, is because they don't understand the math. People make it way too complicated, and it's not that hard, right? But it has in some basic calculators. So that's where we've transferred this past year, is we still do the wholesaling talk and teach in space, because that creates people to bring deals. But then at the same time, we have new borrowers or existing borrowers that have been working with us that need the deals. So Matt and I talked about this a few years ago, where we looked at this as like a 3-touch process. We will create the people to bring the deal. We'll create the deal as far as like the borrower, and then we'll create the money. So we literally want to be that one-stop shop for the wholesaler that wants to go to rehabbing that needs the lender, and now has the money that wants to take, and I don't want to do any of the work anymore. I just want to put my money to work. It's the life cycle, which I think is funny because Matt said it. The name of our company, our parent company, is Full Circle Investment Group. Our lending company is the Coastal Capital Group. So it's interesting to see that there was a principle behind why we called ourselves Full Circle, but it was because of a bad thing, right? Like, first days of rehabbing, we had a partnership. It went south. And I told that guy, I was like, I promise you, everything's going to come full circle on you. I promise you. And then my wife was like, that's what you should call your company, Full Circle.
Perfect.
And I was like, hell yeah, let's go. That's where it started. So that's where we're at on the lending space.
Yeah. So tell me about. I'm interested to know that you posted a picture the other day of a pop top that you did,
Yeah.
and you were like, "This was I think you said this was like one of the hardest things that we've done, or like one of the mistakes." And I'm interested to know because there's a lot of risk involved with real estate investing and lending, and wholesaling not as much. I mean, you can do it wrong and get yourself in a lot of trouble. But I would say, tell us about some of the biggest mistakes you made when you're in the space in real estate investing and lending, if you could.
Before you answer, can you explain what a pop top is to a guy that doesn't?
Yeah. So in that like world, it's basically taking a little 900 square foot home that used to be a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It was kind of like post World War II, houses that were built, 900 square feet. right? It's your starter home. You don't have a family yet. Guys were coming back from the war, and they were just ticky-tack little boxes, right? So we would take those and go vertical with them and then go out the side, meaning that the lot that they sat on would fit a what would be 2,300 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2.5-bath, and like a 1-car garage, right? So what we were learning was we would circumvent the new construction process. The city would say, as long as you leave one wall and you tear everything else down, it's considered a rehab. And we were like, well, shit, that saves us 3 months just to get the building permit. So we were getting our building permit in like 30 days. So that was what we started to do, right? So we started finding these things just like from the wholesale space. So we just started marketing to those specific things, that square footage, that year built, and then it saved us like 15 to 20 grand on the foundation. So we're rolling that right back into profit. So now back to the like, oh my God moment. So I learned, like I said, I always stick and learn from people of how to do things, not reinvent the wheel, probably after like my second or third year wholesaling. So I immediately did that in the new construction, but in the rehab space. So anyway, we started to go in there. We got the set of plans. We found an architect that helped us, put all those plans together. And then we went out and we found all these houses. At the time, I think we were running 3 at a time. And it was just this one that was sitting on the corner of a lot, and it was cockeyed. It was everything that you could hear of that was wrong, right? And I just didn't know any better at the time. So it was, okay, we're going to keep the wall. We're going to go vertical. Great. So that is what a pop top is, like breaking it down, right? So then this one, I go out of town, and I've got 2 partners at the time working with me. And I come home, or I get a message, and it's like, hey, things got messed up. Now the picture with just a slab there, right? There was no walls. And I was like, where's the back wall? Because the back wall in those houses didn't have any of the main plumbing, didn't have anything, like it was just a wall, right? So it allowed us to, use a lot of places that instead of like the left or the right or the front and back. So we kept, usually it's the rear wall. And he was like, the wall's gone. I was like, what does that mean? So, well, now it's new construction, right? So we went inside of what would have been 30 days for a permit to now we're sitting 90 days to get a new construction, because the way that the city sees it is now you have a footer or a slab and you have to build off of that. So they have to come in and approve the slab. Like, it's so stupid about why, but that wall caused another, 60 days of delays. So then it was just, it never stopped after that. That project just completely fell apart the entire time. The set of plans we had used, the city was giving us hassle about using them, right? And keep in mind, we had used the same set of plans on the same type of house at least 4 times over, like no issues, and understood it. And that was it. It just never got better, right? And I keep that as a reminder to don't quit. Right? Like, every week was waking up and getting punched in the mouth with something new, a new bill, a new cost, a new what if. Like, it was constantly happening. And that thing just kept killing us, man. And it's ingrained in my brain, and like there's that address and that time, all of it. It just sucked, right? Yeah. But it created a new thing. It created a new person out of it, because it put a shit ton of pressure on you. And it forced you to learn these things. And that's where I think a lot of people would have just given up. They would have cracked. They would have crashed and just be like, man, screw it. I'm over it. I'm out. I don't want to do it anymore. And I think it goes back to, like, I was still kind of new in the jiu-jitsu world. But at that time, I think I was like a blue belt. And I was like, nah, man, we got this. So what? Like, let's deal with it. Let's make it happen. And funny enough, the guy that was one of my partners was actually, and still to this day, is one of my instructors. Or one of my head instructors. So that was a true testament of working with somebody in a business world and a martial art world. Because, like, Matt, there's a very tight connection inside of that. Like, if you're fighting each other, you don't get any damn closer than that. Right? Like, that's about as close as you get. So and things got hairy for a second, right? But I took the business off the table and I went to him and we had the conversation and we talked and we cleaned it all up. Right. And even to this day, he says, like, I give you a lot of respect for the fact that you came back and did this instead of that. And you didn't let the business run it over. And to this day, we still talk about it because we're good friends. I help all the time with his coaching stuff. It created a big thing. So yeah, that's what a pop top was, and that was where that oh my god moment came from. And if that wasn't a testament of you have to have systems and processes in place, and like one of the guys I learned from in the new construction space was like, you need to learn how to make a pizza and make it the same way every single time without fail, and you get the same result. And that's what new construction is. Everybody thinks it's really easy. Like you dig some dirt, you put footers in, and you build up. As easy as that sounds, it doesn't happen like that all the time. There's multiple little twists and turns.
So that was a trend then, I guess. It's not really a trend now, pop tops. You guys have kind of gone away from that. So
Yeah.
you're big on trends, and you talked to me about it. I think about a year ago or so about the trend to have with multifamily, but you stay on top of those. So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing now in the market that we have going in, and how you stay on top of the trends in general as they come up.
So I stay in spaces that I know and that I've had experiences in, and I grow, right? But I'm always listening and learning for where I want to go, because I've learned this and I understand it, so I know how to use it. But before I jump into something, I'm going to learn a little bit about it, and then really, I say pressure test it, right? Pressure test the numbers, pressure test a deal specifically, and that to me keeps me on top of the trend. So like when you and I talked a few years ago, it was the multifamily was hot and heavy. Everybody's having syndications. That was probably 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. You and I were chatting about that. And we are at the 5-year mark right now where all of those loans are coming due. So when it was really sexy and cool to syndicate and say that you're going to give people these percentages, and they really suckered some people into it, or they just had bad numbers from operation that didn't know any better. But those people right now are in second lien positions and they're coming due. So what we learned was, well, if the first is holding the note and it's a good note, then the second is in default. So that trend would say the operator of the person that borrowed the money, in this case the GP, would be the person that's going to be in the bad situation. Ultimately, it's going to fall back to the lender, right, for a default situation. So go talk to the person that made the loan, not the GP, because at the end of the day, they're not the one making the decision. So that to me was like step one on multifamily commercial space, because that's where I want to go, right? Single family is great, but if you've got 10 roofs and 10 HVACs inside of, separate buildings all over the place versus a 10-unit building, and you run all those, like everything can go to one building, it's way easier to control. Right. And it's way less overhead as far as maintenance goes. So that's where we wanted to go. Me and my wife and like my partners, we wanted to get into the multifamily space. So by following trends, that's how we do it. I learn from people. I watch people. I run the math and the numbers, and I pressure test it.
Yeah. So I've heard a lot of people say that as well. It's I watch people when they talk about it. People who are doing really big things right now, and they always ask, like, if you started back over right now, what would you do differently than with everything you know now? What would you differently if you started back over again? And they all said I would have thought bigger. And like the real estate investors, they all say like I would have gone for bigger deals, like multifamily bigger deals. And there's like instead of trying to buy one single family home or 10 single family homes, I would look for like the 100-unit or something huge like that. That's what I would do, because those deals tend to be easier sometimes. They could be a lot more work, but they just feel like if they shot for that, it would have got to where they needed to faster. Do you think that scares a lot of people? Like it scares me to think about me going and buying a 100-unit apartment complex right now. Like I don't feel like I know anything enough about that. Do you think that is your thought process aligned with that? Like if you started back over, would you go for multifamily now, or how would you still go the same trend of wholesaling, single family, and then up to multifamily?
Yeah, I say this all the time now. If I could go back and start over, like people ask me that question, I would not be in residential. I would immediately be in commercial. And whether that means retail, commercial, industrial, land, multifamily, like I would have if I could start over and have somebody smack my younger self, they'd be like, yeah, dude, you're going to deal with the same headaches over here, and it's just more zeros, right? And we didn't know any different when we started in residential because it seemed easier. When in fact, it's easier to get a loan in commercial than it is in single family. So the underwriting's different. It's easier than you think because it's based off of the performance of the building. But yeah, the other thing people misinterpret when you say if I started over is that there's a factor of time there that you've built huge relationships with. And I think relationship capital is more than people realize, right? That was something else I tell people is like, you cannot network enough. You need to get out and talk to people and keep really good track of who is who and who's doing what, and then ping on those people when you need help. Like there's more of the people that are willing to help you than people think. And there's a lot of scarcity mindset out there, but there's way more abundance mindset than there is scarcity. And especially for people that are doing well. You're never going to find somebody that's doing really good to like talk down on you. It's never going to happen, right? It's just I've been in this long enough, and I think other people would hear this and say like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to say that because people want other people that are successful want other people to be successful, right? So yeah, it's crazy. I would. I wish I could go back and 15, 14 years ago and be like, all right, we're going all commercial because there's wholesaling in the commercial space. Right. But those guys' checks take 6 months to a year, but they're also $200, $300, $150,000 checks, right? Right? So it's way different on the money side. It's just, do you have the fortitude to be able to withstand and wait for it to happen? And yeah, the people that find those deals, it's kind of like when I did new construction stuff and I learned about new construction, I did it from a builder. And he said, Shawn, go to this area, find these lots, and I will make you part of the deal. And that was kind of where I learned about the lending stuff, which was second lien positions. And he was the one that showed me. Yeah. He's like, you want to make a $50,000 wholesale fee when actually you can make almost 80 if you do it this way. So he paid me, I think it was like 20 grand up front. And the rest of it, I took it a second lien position as he sold the homes he built. And I had a second lien behind him for my rest of my wholesale fee. And that was how I learned like the lending stuff. So yeah, I would definitely, if I was starting over, one thing that you can't take back is the time and the relationships you made. But if you're the new person listening to this and you want to start, get in the room of people that are doing what you want to do and start networking with people and be very diligent of those people and go ask them how you can help them, and then watch how much they're willing to help you get where you want to go because you're helping them get what they need. Which at the end of the day, everybody's going to tell you this: find a deal, not stuff that makes no sense, and learn to do the math. That's where you're helpful.
So a couple questions for you. If we double click on that commercial and kind of maybe if you could start all over again. And once again, I'm coming from this question from a place of very much a novice when it comes to y'all's world. How much did 2020 affect and change the commercial real estate side of the world? Because for me as an outside looking in, a guy who had worked in the corporate world and likely had to go into offices a lot, and then I saw everybody go out of the corporate world, out of the office environment, and really kind of reinvent the work from home. And I saw kind of the landscape of the commercial world, in my opinion, probably crumble short term, but create a huge opportunity for guys like you long term. How did commercial change in 2020, and how does that look in today's world out of that, if it did change?
You're referring to COVID, right?
Correct.
So I feel like for the people that were already playing the virtual space, which we did a lot of that, because our business was run from virtual assistants. So we had people in the Philippines helping us run our business in this world. So it forced us to already understand what the virtual setting was like. Like even when we started in today, even in my lending business, I have no brick and mortar building. It is unnecessary for my model. But I agree that it probably put a hindrance on a few people because in the commercial space retail, meaning like strip malls, like they need these little spaces filled, you have to have it, right? That business model has to have it. So yeah, I think it really affected it. I think it was a drastic one. And I know people in the commercial space that are some of my friends that it just crushed them, right? So I think now everybody's talking about, well, that's over in the government world, but it's like, you got to go back to work and you got to go do these things. And it's like, it depends on the business model, right? Because a lot of this stuff can be done virtually. Now on the multifamily, that didn't really affect it because it was like you either go to work or you don't. But in the industrial, I feel like I wasn't part of it then, but I get to hear it now where it says it was a problem, right? Because you needed people in those buildings to do the work, which in this case was the labor force, which was just like any other, talk about a labor line, right? And somebody having to do all the work. I get it. But I think in the commercial space, it crushed them. And then retail space, it's horrible.
My question is more referred to like the value. Like for me, I worked at that period of time, I worked for a company who had 5 different offices that housed thousands of people. And they identified that they were able to get rid of 4 of the 5 offices and downsize one of them to a significantly smaller office because they learned in that year how to be an office-based company to a remote-based company and saved hundreds of $1,000s a year on cost of rent to
Yeah.
commercial space. And so I assume that my experience is not unique in that aspect. I assume a lot of companies identified that. I think that I've also seen what was commercial real estate get repurposed instead of like office space to now apartments or extra living, or kind of be creative with what you do with that space. But I don't know if that affects kind of how you look at the commercial side of things. That's just, like I said, outside looking in type of thing.
Yeah, it forced people to understand that is what works. You do not have to have a brick and mortar setup. Now, it's interesting how it forced people to get there, right? Like it was operations that said, can we still even survive if we do this? And then when they realized how easy it was, kind of like when Zoom first came out, we were like, we've been using this shit for 3 years. Like,
Yeah.
why is Zoom a thing all of a sudden? Which then you look back and you're like, damn, I wish I had bought that stock.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's a forced thing, right? You have to figure things out, and that is what happened in that world. So yeah, it's going to crush. I know, like I said, in the retail space, it destroyed it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't need it, but yet these companies realize I don't need that space, so I'm going to save all this money. Yeah, we can do all of this remotely, right? So yeah, from my goals and what we're trying to do, we're focused on the multifamily, getting into the multifamily space. But in that right now, interest rates are so high for building costs and lending costs that you're looking at 12 to 14% on a commercial loan to buy a multifamily building. Let's say you're going to build, I don't know, 100 units, right? That has grown by over 25% just in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, to where it doesn't make sense. And you got guys sitting on the sidelines right now with either cash and they're just ready to go to work, but then they know when they go to refi that thing out to get their cash back, they're on a huge rate, and it's like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The commercial space right now is kind of weird in the sense of it's paused, but it's not. Things are working, but it's just like everything else. Like single family is still going to roll, but you got to find a good deal. So I think the repurpose stuff is we're seeing a lot of stuff in this area. We see the Eastern Shore where people are on the other side of like old motels and repurposing them into what are like mini apartment complexes, right? And I've seen that happen a lot. So you've got a workforce that is going to go up closer to DC, Arlington area for the construction side of things, and then it still works its way down through Richmond, Fredericksburg, that kind of stuff. So people need places to stay or people to live, right? And you're seeing that these conversions of these places, and I'm talking like stuff if you go down Eastern Shore, you know, if you're on that main road, you see left and right, there's all these little motels, and people are buying those things up for next to nothing, and they got the cash to do it, and they're repurposing them, and it's a killer turn. It's a killer turn. So take that same concept and keep it in the commercial world. What do you do with it later, right? Do you keep it on your books? And I'm learning about commercial. It's like not all assets are held on the book forever. Right? You just like single family, you take them in, you take them out, you take them in, you take them out, right? And they serve their purpose as a rate of return. And then what your rate of return is based on your capital ability. So yeah, I think it's I'm liking the commercial space because of what's happening. Everybody's talking about blood in the water. I'm like, not yet, but this coming year and maybe like towards the end of next year, oh, it's gonna get bad because those guys are all in a bad spot. Everybody that lent the money for the down payment amount, you know, $200,000, $300,000, $500,000, they're all staring down defaults right now, all of them. And they're like, how do I don't want to lose my principal. I want my interest, but I damn sure don't want to lose my principal. So they're going to have to repurpose this.
Yeah, you got to be flexible. I think that's important to know in real estate. I've seen a lot of people talk about it. You have to have multiple ways to get money out of a property sometimes. You have people that start on a fix and flip and like, I'm not going to sell it for what I need. I need to repurpose it into a lease option or a rental or something like that. And I feel like you have to be flexible and understand multiple exit strategies on something because you can get yourself in a situation where your initial exit strategy doesn't work for whatever reason. So when you're going to lending here, you talked about these people that are, you know, lent all this money on these projects and down payments and stuff, and they're looking at like, holy crap, I'm not going to make my money back. How do you as a lender protect yourself when knowing like, hey, I'm not going to get myself in this deal because of this and that. So how do you go about protecting yourself and your money when you go and lend something?
So we have a lending box that says, I might get into verbiage and percentages and stuff like that here, so stick with me for a second. In the lending space, protection is how much you're exposed by. So in our world, we use it as the property's going to be worth $300,000 or $250,000 at the end of the day, and we do a loan to value of that says 70%. So we're going to back into the math and take out whatever the rehab cost, and I'll use 50 grand because this is the same formula that I'm talk about all the time. So $50,000 in rehab says we can lend up to $125,000 of purchase for that house. So now we're into it for only $125,000. And now as the property gets improved based on the rehab going out, then the value of the house goes up. So now there's security measures and checkpoints as we do that, where there's lien waivers, there's title updates, there's inspection processes, all making sure that the value of the home never exceeds what we've got into it versus what it's going to be worth. Right? So then there's paperwork that's involved with that. So deeds of trust, notes that are done so that it says how much we're lending, what the percentages is, and then what happens in the worst case scenario. And one of our big protection pieces is that we hold what's called a pocket deed, which says that if this borrower were to fail, that they already agree ahead of time that if they reach the end of the line at this point, they're not going to argue with us. They've already signed a document that says they're just going to deed it right back to us. And now we have control of the asset that we lent on. Yep. So that's not in the normal space of conventional lending. If any of y'all own your own home, you know that you got a deed, but you got a mortgage to it. Yep. And it says that if you go in default, that you either can catch up or you can't. And if you can't, then they have to foreclose on the property. Foreclosure is expensive. We don't want that cost, right? But most people say, well, how do you protect yourself from liens against the property? During the inspection process of the rehabs, we do a title update and we do pictures. So all of that protects us to know that there's nothing encumbering the loan behind us that says what we're exposed by. So then we run all these calculations showing that the borrower is going to borrow this amount of money. They're expected to make this profit after all expenses. And then what's the worst case scenario at exposure for us as a lender, which is, hey, we're into this thing for $175,000 at the end of the day. So if we have to take the asset back, that borrower did everything they were supposed to do, and now they gave us the property back because we had that pocket deed. Now we'll go sell the asset, right? So that's the protection point of paperwork and numbers and math, and we run all these equations, and we literally run it as worst case. And we do that with the intention that, does it protect us? And are we covered with just the principal? And forget the interest for a minute, right? As long as we protect the principal, we're good. Because that's the worst case scenario. The best case, everybody's happy, makes money, and we're all good, right? Interest, and then the borrower makes profit and all that. We don't underwrite a single deal or lend on a single deal that we don't see the borrower making a minimum profit of $25,000 after all expenses. Gross, pre-tax, right? Because I don't know their tax stuff. I don't know their tax, but I say after all expenses, I mean commissions, holding costs, taxes, interest to us, paying the principal back, all of it. If we don't see them making a $25,000 profit, we don't even begin to underwrite the loan. So we go through this with them, and we show them all the math ahead of time and all that paperwork that says, hey, by the way, at the worst case, this is what's going to happen. And you agree to it. So there's never a moment with us and anybody that works with us from a borrower to a lender position that doesn't have every single detail dotted and crossed. If everybody knows what's up front, there are no, oh, I didn't know in the back ends.
Right.
And that's where I feel like in the lending space, there's too many people not doing that.
Yeah, actually, you said that, and you brought up Pocket D. We actually we wholesaled a subject to that we were supposed to take down for ourselves. The rehab just kind of kept piling up, and I was like, I don't want to deal with the rehab, so we wholesaled it. But we did a pocket deed for these sellers because of a situation with a guy around here that we both know that was having all these people lend and screwed them all over. And one of the deals that we wholesaled to them was a subject to deal, and he refused to. Now he's defaulted on it. This seller is in a bad position, a bad spot right now, and he will not transfer the deed back over. And because that happened, I know I'm not responsible for it because it wasn't me who did this to this lady, but I feel responsible for that. I wanted to help this lady out in the situation, and we did. We thought we did, but now we put her in a worse position. And so now that we learn from that. Now we actually have a pocket deed that we give over to the seller and say like, hey, these are the terms. If they don't perform, then here you go. You can get your house back and get it out of the situation here. So I think that the reason why I brought that up in general is that guy. There's a bunch of people who lended on him and now have to sue this guy and to get their money back because he literally screwed them over. It's like a list of people that are on this lawsuit for him. So it's crazy to think that because they put in a lot of money to somebody and didn't have those protections in place maybe, or let him do what he wanted to do and trusted this guy so much that they didn't put everything in place where like no, I'm not going to let you make those decisions. We're going to follow the contract that we put. You know about the situation and kind of how it worked out in general. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the other part about and being local to certain areas is pretty much most of the lenders, whether they're called hard money, private money, or specific borrowers, we all know each other, right?
Yep.
And you can only, just like in contracting, you can only cut your prices by so much and only do but so many kind of deals before you're either over leveraged or you're just doing bad business,
Yep.
right? So we all talk and we all know each other and we have a blacklist. We have people don't want to lend to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have people don't want to do business with. I mean, it goes for attorneys, it goes for borrowers, it goes for lenders. It's across the board. But yes, security in this paperwork is so important. And I think that is not stressed enough in the industry. And I am one of those people that I did it in wholesaling, and I'm doing it over in lending now. To the point where I actually had one of the lenders call me and be like, Shawn, can you stop telling people and showing this math? And I was like, why? And I was like, cuz you're messing with our business, man. And I was like, but you're making what I consider, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, it's what I consider. Those are predatory loans.
Mm-hmm.
You asked for them to bring 20% to the table because they were at an 80% LTV and you wanted it at 70, right? So that's a 10% spread, but let's just say you needed $20,000. You didn't break the math to show down. When they put that money down, there is no way they're getting it back.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't show that, but you made the loan. So why? And they were like, because that's the business, Shawn. Like, people borrow the money, and how they run their numbers is their math. And I was like, wrong. That is horrible business, man.
Right.
You are setting that person up for failure. Why? Why are you doing that? And if you say anything less than it's just based on the money, you're still lying.
Right.
So why not just do good business and show people, like, don't get into that loan because you're not going to be able to, one, get your money back, and two, you're not going to be able to pay me back. Promise you. There's not a lender or a private money lender or an institution that's not running that math that's securing their number. I promise you that. If anybody's going to screw up, it's you as the borrower because you don't know any better. So we put a lot of effort into that lately where we're teaching it. We're showing it. We're sharing calculators, right? Like, I had a guy borrowing money at 15% for 6 months. That's 30% annualized if you do it twice. And he didn't realize it. And I was like, how? Like, where's the calculations of the math? Like, how does this work? And he couldn't figure it out. He was like, well, the lender told me I'm good. And I was like, at the end of the day, your profit, what did it look like? And he's like, well, we didn't make that much because we went over budget. I was like, you weren't meant to make money from the jump.
Right.
You just didn't understand it because you didn't run the math right. And I was like, it's unfortunate that lender didn't show you what would have been a good deal and what wasn't. So back to that statement, it's like being a person that's like, hey, Shawn, I've got, I don't know, $100,000 I want to put to work. All right, cool. We're going to show you how it's secured. We're going to show you how it's protected with paperwork. So security means the lending side of it, right? So without selling a security, that means that they are involved and they're not part of a fund. They are direct on the deed. Well, I'll say on the deed. They're on the deed of trust and they're on the note. So if something goes south, they get paid first. It's not part of an LLC or a fund that's like, hey, by the way, we got to get paid and then whatever's left is yours. That's not the way it should be. So if we protect that and we show that, then everybody's good, right? That's the piece I think is the most important part that people are not listening to or sharing how to do. And we are just very adamant about it. Me specifically, but my team and I are very adamant about showing how's this protection. So hopefully I'm answering your question and not like teetering off, but deed of trust, a note, worst case scenario pocket deed, no foreclosures. How do we protect it for no liens go in place? And there's so many other things we could talk about, but that is those are like the 3 to 4 basic things that keep the money protected. So it's going to come back. Principle number 1, and then interest on top at worst case scenario number 2.
So with lending, it's like I said, it's scary to me to think that. But how are you looking for people to do business with you? Say that I have $100,000. I'm like, Shawn, how do I put this in place? Do you take the money and work with them together with yourself, or you just show them how to do it, or what particularly are you looking for? If people have money and want to spend it with Shawn, what's the best way to do that with you?
So they're going to come work with us and be a part of the lending, but
Yep.
in the first position lien. So the way we write the paperwork is that they are a direct lender, and we're in a second lender position, right?
Okay.
So if you came to me and you said, Matt, I got $100,000 I want to put to work, and let's just say it was 10% for the year, right? That's $10,000 over a full 12 months, or you break that down, and whatever the math works out to, and I'm calculating in front of me, and just say $1,000 or nine, whatever that is a month is what's going to be paid at the end of the loan, right? So you're paid as the lender before we're paid, right? Now we're going to take that same money and we're going to go negotiate an interest rate or a price in between what we're paying you and what we're charging the borrower, right? So security wise, you're on the documentation and in place first, and then we have a piece of documentation in second. So you're protected first, and your money is not going anywhere before anybody gets paid. It's you first, then us. So paperwork-wise, you are on the documentation. You're not part of an LLC. You're not part of a syndication. You are direct. And that's a big difference from being inside of those other things I just mentioned. A syndication, as an LLC, you're putting your money in, and you're told there's an interest rate you're being paid. But if something were to go wrong on that deal, how many other people are in position? How many other people are on that loan? And you were just mentioning this, like locally, there was somebody that did this. And this person went and borrowed, let's just say $50,000, and they were putting $50,000 behind a second, a third, and a fourth position lien. There's no value there and no protection, right? So at protection at the highest, the worst case you ever want to be is a second lien position, but really you just want first. So to answer your question, to work with us, we will take you through the underwriting and show you all the math, show you the paperwork and securing it, show your rate of return, and how it's secured. Does that help answer it?
It does, absolutely.
Yeah, Matt's got hundreds of thousands of dollars he wants to give to you after this call, so just check back with them on that. So I know we're tight on time, so I want to jump right into a couple of questions, Matt, unless you had a couple extra points you wanted to run into.
No, let's jump into the questions.
So this is designed for us to get basic clips out of. This is designed for us to have it be rapid fire with your answers and short type clips. We talked a little bit about BJJ. One of the things I loved about BJJ is the fact that I think that it's the best ego check somebody can have. I love when a 250-pound muscle guy comes in and you throw him with that 120-pound purple belt and she wraps him in a like a bow. Tell me, or tell our audience, why BJJ is the best thing from an ego perspective that you've experienced, or maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe there's something else.
So I tell people this: Jiu-Jitsu is for somebody. It's not for everybody. It's going to force you to tell you who you are as a person. It's going to show you where your weaknesses are, and either you're in a good mental space to accept that and grow, or you're going to crash and burn and quit. So it's not meant for everybody, and that's okay. But it's also a self-defense martial art that you're learning it to protect yourself and protect your family. The part you mentioned about having like the ego thing, I think it's great, right? From a big dude coming in the gym and this little 120-pound, 130-pound purple belt or blue belt female wraps them up from a technical standpoint, and they're like, oh my God, what happened? And as us, the other guys are like, you sure you want to get into this, man? Right? And that's just a fun thing. From am I doing this? Are you doing it for the right reasons? A lot of people that come to jiu-jitsu, and over the years I've done it and learned it, it's because they're doing it for something specifically. One, from a female standpoint, they were attacked, or they were in a bad situation and they don't ever want to feel like that again, right? Males over 20 are probably young, learning, want to defend themselves because they got attacked, or don't want to get attacked and want to defend themselves, right? So I think to answer your question, it's not meant for everybody. It's meant for somebody that needs it and wants to go through what it takes to get there. White belt sucks. Everything sucks about being a white belt. But then you get to the blue belt, and it's the one where everybody quits because they feel like they meet the pinnacle, the top of the mountain. You're like, bro, you just hit the surface. So like, you got a long ways to go. But if you get past blue and you get to purple, that's where you've been in for a minute. You're probably in love with the martial art, and it's helped you drastically in your personal and that gym life and personal life. So I don't think it's not meant for everybody, but it does help people.
I think it's interesting, and I see and draw a parallel to the other side of your business. And I think a lot of times people get into wholesaling or maybe even into lending, and they think it's easy, right? Because you see a lot of these gurus, influencers online talk about how easy it is, and so they get in there. But in reality, I think that once you get past that year or two of making those lumps, like you would in jiu-jitsu, then you can really start getting value out of that. So speaking of the influencers out there, in your opinion, give me one or two influencers that you think talk about what you do or somebody should listen to outside of yourself, Matt, or somebody else that's maybe more commonly known. What's like an under the ground influencer that can give you the real value to help you grow in that real estate wholesale lending space?
I think the two books I always recommend are, if you're in the wholesaling space, is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That gentleman was a hostage negotiator for the FBI, and he uses psychology, tactics, and how our brains work as humans to talk about sales. So it's a great book to talk about sales. If you're in wholesaling, you are in sales and marketing. I think if you're going to look at running a business, look into the book called Traction. That's going to teach you how to set yourself up as a business. And I think that's probably one of the parts that never gets talked about because it's damn sure not sexy, right? It's like how to run a business and set yourself up as a business. So those two people were drastically changed me as a business operator and a salesperson. So Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, and Traction, I think, is Gino Wickman. I'm not a big influencer person follower. That kind of stuff doesn't really help me or impress me. I'm the person that wants to listen to somebody talk about something, learn from it, and then pressure test it. So I'm more of I'm not a big reader. I'm an Audible. I don't learn well by reading. So Audible would be me. I think those two are drastic helps for people that want to get into this space.
Awesome. It sounds like you really love those books.
Yeah.
Last question for me, and then I'll hand it off to you, Matt, to run it home. You mentioned the importance of a network. You had mentioned the importance of networking. For me, when I teach young entrepreneurs or young people in business, I tell a lot of times people to overlook the financial gain short term to build up both the skill set gain and ultimately the networking game. And the stronger your network, the more people you know that have value is the most important asset you have as an entrepreneur. Talk with me a little bit about that, like around the importance of a network for you. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I wanted to double click on that a little bit.
Yeah. So locally, I say find your local RIA group, and it can be a few of them, but go to those RIA groups and meet with them. Our local one here in Hampton Roads is called TRIG, and it stands for Tidewater Real Estate Investment Group. That is a nonprofit organization that's been a group for 40 plus years. 2 years ago, I sat on their board, and it was an awesome experience because it was my moment to give back, and kind of that's what the board does, right? It breathes new life into what the current situation is. So go to a RIA group and meet people and vet them, right? Are they doing business? What kind of business are they doing? Does it align with what you want to do? And network, meaning go to the meetings that you're trying to do, right? And this is where I tell people, once you get to that meeting, you have to, and this is for introverts, because I'm not introverted. This is for introverts. You have got to get out of your bubble of uncomfortableness and walk up and introduce yourself and figure out what your elevator pitch is. It's 60 seconds. Hey, my name is Shawn. I just got into wholesaling. I'm trying to figure it out and learn. How can I help you do that? and see
Perfect.
what happens.
Yeah.
That get uncomfortable. And I tell this in jiu-jitsu, and I'd say it in real estate. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, because
Right.
that's where you grow.
Right. Absolutely. So tell me about the 3 mistakes you see new wholesalers get into when they get started.
Not taking the time to learn the business. They're too interested in the quick money.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that they just watched on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram that said, all you got to do is talk to a seller, get it under contract, and then sell it to this person and make $10, $20, $30,000. But in between that statement, there is a lot of things that you have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one is how to run comps, which are what things are selling for, and follow the principles that majority of the buyers are using, which is the math that you have to use to back into the deal.
Right.
Once you understand that, it's going to get you to learn how to do comps. It's going to get you to learn how to estimate rehab for multiple different exit strategies, whether it's a buy and hold, whether it's a flip, sub 2, creative financing, and how to make your offer to the seller where you make a profit. Because there's a piece of that formula that you have to understand the back end of it, where it says, hey, I can make an offer for $125,000. But that's what your buyer's supposed to buy it at, and you got to take your fee off on the front end.
Right.
Because when you don't do that and you put your fee on the back end, it now changes the math and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a lot of people that are new to the industry do not take the time to learn just those basics and back to fundamentals. They don't take the time to learn that. They just, hey, somebody said get this under contract. And they go and they find some random paperwork online. They don't understand that. And then they go just get that signed, not realizing like how legal that is. And
Right.
then some way, shape, or form, like go try to find a buyer and then try to sell it. I think
Right.
it's put your time in and effort. Take the time to learn this industry that you're trying to get into, or this business that you're trying to make. Unless you
Right.
want it to be a hobby and you're just like, oh, I'll do a few of these and I'm out.
Right. Yeah, I hear all the time that wholesaling is simple, but it's not easy.
Right.
It's a simple concept, but it's not easy. So I agree with you on all those, especially the part where you said people send their run their numbers and then they put their offers out at the price that people are supposed to buy at, and they don't think like, all right, now I have to add my fee on top of it, which makes the deal not a deal anymore. I see that all the time.
Yep.
So what are the 3 mistakes you see people that are looking to lend money on? What are the three mistakes you see people consistently do in the lending space?
Not understanding, again, back to the math, not understanding the math of what is a good loan and what is not. Understanding the paperwork that comes with it to secure your money. And finally, the borrower in which you're working with. Those 3 pieces are the most common piece that mess up a loan, mess up the money not coming back, disingenuine results to the person that's borrowing the money, that you did not clearly define what was going to happen at every turn. So paperwork, knowledge on the math, and your borrower. If I'm going to answer it as a 3-question prong.
Perfect. All right. Well, last 2 questions we always ask on every single interview that we do. I'll start the first one off, and Matt, you'll finish it off. What is your goal? So now we're at the beginning of the year here. So what's your 1-year goal for here 2025, 5-year goal, and then 20-year goal?
So my wife and I do these, and we did ours for the year. We didn't have the 20, but we had the 5. Revenue was $25,000 a month, and that's reoccurring. People call it passive. It's reoccurring revenue. So however that's done, you can look at it that way. So
An extra 25 or getting you to 25?
So 25 monthly
Okay.
revenue for the 5-year goal.
Yep.
And that to us was comfortable, right? We don't have any children. We don't have an expensive lifestyle. We like to travel. So we don't need a lot, right?
Yep.
And I think that's the difference between a lot of people wanting these grandiose things, and I'm not that person, right? I live a simple life. I don't need a lot, and I enjoy spending time with my family and my wife and traveling. So the 5-year was, I know it was 25 reoccurring. And I have to go back and look at the other one because we were literally just talking about this. So I think you said what, 5, 10, and 20?
Yeah, this year goal, 5-year, and then 20-year.
Yeah. So the 1-year goal was for me. I don't just do me. We talk about her and I collectively because she runs and created a business, and I have my business. So we try to run those collectively.
Yep.
Because it goes back to what we say is the vision collectively together. Yep. What are we trying to accomplish? So the 1 year goal was like, hey, can we reach 15? And again, like effortless, but reoccurring from just the lending space. And then she wanted to hit, I think it was 10 for herself.
So any grandiose idea in 20 years where you think you want to be?
Retired. I'm 40. I'll be 47. So 20 years puts me at 60. My goal was 58 and be done. Now I don't have to work if I don't want to. Now I know me personally, I just don't like that.
Yeah.
So I'll be bored, right? But I want to be able to, if I want to go and just do something, not have to work, then I can do it. But otherwise, I want to just be done. And that's a lofty goal, but you push for it, and you'll reach it based on the KPIs that say you get there.
Absolutely.
So speaking of done, when you've gone way past that 20-year goal and you're at the end of your life and all said and done, Shawn, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be known for?
No regrets. No regrets.
Yeah.
No regrets, man. I want to be. I make jokes of this, but I want to be the person where it's like you have a funeral and you have being remembered, and you have people there being like, that person helped me do this and got me there. We don't have children, so there's nothing we're really passing on. But you're gonna hopefully have those people that say, in the jiu-jitsu world, he helped me on these multiple levels, and in the business world, he helped me on these multiple levels. I don't care about fame. I don't care about none of that. The legacy for me would just be the memory of helping somebody better their life. That's all that matters to me. I don't need. That would be cool to sit at the other side of the world and you get to see it, and somebody's like, that dude helped me here, and you're like, yeah. So that's
well, I'm gonna say it right now, Shawn. That you helped me a lot. All right. So I mean, at the beginning of this, I don't know, like at the beginning of the career, like when I started this wholesaling journey, and like maybe I would have been where I am, but the fact that you took the time to say like, hey, this is not a deal and this is why, instead of just like attacking me on Facebook, like this is a terrible deal, this sucks, you shouldn't be, you took the time to actually show it to me. So you've helped me out and still helped me out to today. So you at least have one person saying that about you right now.
Awesome.
So Shawn, to wrap this up here, how do we get a hold of you? I know that if you're a wholesaler out there, you're looking for resources, Shawn has so many resources on wholesalingoutofthebox.com. It's a great place, but how else can people get a hold of you and do business with you?
So I'll be dangerous and put out a phone number. It's a business line, so it's dangerous to do, but 757-500-0911 is our lending number. The lending website is thecoastalcapitalgroup.com. Be very specific in the. There's another guy in the area that's not us and has close to the same name, so thecoastalcapitalgroup.com. Everything on that website is going to tell you what we lend for, whether it's a good deal or not. There's a quick calculator on there for you, what our terms are, and then an application to apply. We pretty much do everything through the website. So if that's a way of deciding if you want to work with us, we need everything there. So the phone number is the best way to text us and reach us. Leave me a message. That's me responding. That's not anybody else on the team. It's me. And then that website. If you want to work with us for like, hey, I got some money and I want to go to work, same thing. I want you to send me a text message. I want to get on a call, like something like this, and then show you what we do and how we do it. Those are the ways of getting a hold of us. And then, like you said, the wholesaling space is tons of information on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you're, especially in Virginia, go and join the Wholesaling Real Estate in Virginia Facebook group. But if you're not, still join it and learn a lot from Shawn. You go live still. You still go live consistently.
Yeah.
Go live consistently every Sunday.
No, we stopped the Sunday thing. We were doing that. You and I did that for a while. It was a lot of fun, and we helped a lot of people. Now we're going to create a different group, but probably do it through the Discord space.
Okay, great.
And see how that rolls.
All right, yeah, we'll link it if you guys have it ready on here. But guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys gained value like I did from Shawn, how I continue to do from Shawn. Please, if you enjoyed this episode, you learned anything from it, watch our other episodes, like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell icon, and get alerted. We release these every single Monday about 10 o'clock Eastern. So please join and please let us know how you feel about it. Shawn, thank you so much for it. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, guys.